ZAKAT, a practical guide, a research based on the Sri Lankan Muslim community, authored and published by Mishkath Research Institute.
Let's discuss about the fourth condition, which is exceeding the basic needs. Al-Quran says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. They ask you what they should spend. Kulilaf, say the excess beyond your needs. According to this verse, we understand zakat is liable when someone has excess amount of wealth, excess amount of assets. So on the excess amount, on the excess wealth only, zakat is become eligible. So this refers to the wealth that remains after basic needs such as food, clothing, shelter, education and health are fulfilled, and the need to live a dignified life is ensured to a satisfactory extent. After deducting all these expenses incurred, when somebody has the excess amount which reach the level of the nisab, he become eligible or she become eligible to pay zakat. In other words, if a person's wealth attains nisab at the completion of 1 year, zakat is not obligatory on that particular person if the income earned is sufficient only to cover his or her day-to-day expenses. So we clearly understand zakat is liable on the person who has excess amount or excess wealth after deducting all the necessary essential expenses incurred. Let's take an example based on the expenses incurred 2021, according to the expenses incurred in 2021. Let's take a family of 5 living in Colombo or its suburbs requires an approximate monthly expense of 200,000 rupees. So their annual expense is 2.4 million. And after the annual expenses incurred, the person has cash in reserve 1.2 million. 1.2 million. So his annual income is 3.6 million. Cash reserve after the expenses are deducted 1.2 million. Now the amount of nisab, let's say for example the amount of nisab is 10.625 sovereign. So 1 sovereign is considered with the amount 1,168,750 rupees. 1,168,750 rupees. According to this calculation, as the cash reserve with the person exceeds the amount of nisab after deducting the basic expenses. So in this situation, he is liable to pay zakat. He is liable to pay zakat. Now let me explain one more example. This is an example where you can use it in a Colombo region or a city level life. But when it comes to a normal life, a family of 5 living in a small city or a rural area requires an approximate monthly expense of 100,000 rupees per month. So their annual expense is 1.2 million. After the annual expenses are incurred, that person has the cash reserve 1.2 million. So the annual income is 2.4 million, annual expense is 1.2 million and the cash reserve is 1.2 million. So now the amount of nisab is 10.625 sovereign. 1 sovereign is equal to 1,168,750 rupees. In this situation, as the cash reserve of a person exceeds the amount of nisab after deducting the basic needs expenses, he is liable to pay zakat. Now I have to clarify one important note here. these calculations are for estimation purposes only. So estimation purposes only. It should be observed that the moderate expenses may differ person to person and in line with the prevailing inflation rate of the country. Therefore, it is imperative that everyone should perform this obligation with God consciousness as guided by Al-Quran and Hadith. So for estimation purposes, we have given you some examples. You all know what are your expenses and what are your reserves. So according to your expenses on your family and according to the inflation rates of the country, with the God consciousness, let us calculate our zakat to fulfill the obligation of zakat.